was time for me to really start working on getting ready to go home. They really wanted me to put my fight pants on and really work on going home. I had been in the hospital for 3 weeks now, so it was a long time. It had been a rough road and lots of ups and downs, and but now that I had made it through the second surgery well, it was time to start working on preparing to go home after nearly a month. So after 28 days in the hospital, on January 20th, 2021, I officially went home from the hospital after my spinal fusion and spinal surgery revision. I finally went home and I was reunited with my family after 28 days, truly a whole month. And I've never been apart from my family for that long. Obviously, when I had H1N1, if you don't know, there was another pandemic in 2009. It was the H1N1 influenza, swine flu pandemic. I was, I guess, quote, victim, you could say, of that. I was obviously not alone during that time because I was only a minor. I was 11 years old. So at least one of my parents were always with me during that time. And even like when I would go away at summer camp and stuff, like the most I've ever been away from home is a week. And I am a very independent person, but not even to be able to like see my family, like not be allowed. I think it's different when you're not allowed to see your family. It was much more difficult on my parents than it was for me. Like obviously I was totally okay. I'm very independent. I know so many people personally that work there and that were taking care of me, so I did not ever feel alone. And so it was much more difficult for my parents than it was for me. They knew everything that was going on and were kept in like, constant updates and contact and all of that. So it wasn't like they had no idea what was going on. And it was such a joyous day. Also really crazy too because when they dropped me off, obviously they expected to see me in 3 to 5 days, a max of 7. If you missed the beginning of the spinal fusion series, my experience. Also, I don't remember if I mentioned in the intro, but this is the last video in my spinal fusion experience series, I guess. I am going to do one other video talking about, after this video, talking about my recovery, how that was, and where I am now. But I'll be in one video. Things will share a video because there honestly isn't too much to say about my recovery, which is a good thing, and kind of talking about where I am now and where things stand. But I wanted to share about coming home day. After 28 days, it was finally time for me to go home, and I was released from the hospital and reunited with my family. If you missed the beginning of this spinal fusion series, my parents did not come with me to my spinal fusion surgery at the time. There was still a lot of unknowns about COVID. It was still heavily prevalent in the area where my hospital is. I am high risk as well. They are obviously much older than I am, and so they have the age risk factor that I do not have, and so I was obviously comfortable being in the hospital. I felt safe. My point in mentioning all of this was on my going home day, because you're probably like, well, your parents didn't come with you, they came with you to your halo surgery and blah blah blah. Obviously I was there much longer and it was much more complicated, and yeah, there's a lot of things it's just good that they didn't come, because I would have never been able to live with myself had they caught it, and I was impatient if they stayed with me because there was no reason that I couldn't be there by myself. And it also helped that I knew people there personally who were taking care of me. That also played a major role in me feeling it's so much different when the people who are taking care of you know you personally. It's just so much different in a good way. And so that's where my parents were. That's why they weren't there. It was my decision to not have them. And they really couldn't be. The hospital was like really about it. After I ended up needing to be there so much longer, they would not allow my parents to be there. That's the story on that, but I don't think I really talked about that too much. I mentioned it really briefly in the first episode, but I know that this is like a big part of like people wondering like where were they? My parents wanted to be there, but I did not want them there because I would never be able to live with myself if something happened to them because of COVID. During a hospital stay, like obviously they could get COVID anywhere, but I didn't want it to be because of me. You know what I mean? And like I said, there was no reason why I couldn't be there by myself. So that's that, and we were reunited. My family drove 2 hours to come pick me up, and it was really, really awesome. Even though it was an incredibly joyous day, it was really scary. Pain was still a challenge, more than any other surgery I've ever had in my life. And I don't have a lot of options due to severe allergies. It's not just minor allergies that we could have mitigated with, you know, like Benadryl or Tylenol or something like that, like their major allergies, and so severe allergies, I guess you could say. At the point in my stay, like obviously there came a point where I was giving me anything that I couldn't have at home. Finally, you know, the basis of me going home, and I met all of my milestones that I mentioned in previous segments of the series. And so it was still really scary just knowing, because I think I can't speak for everyone who's medically complex or has gone through something really big and scary, but I think especially when it's a team that you trust, it can be really scary to leave a hospital, because you know that if something goes wrong, or if something really bad happens, or they're there to help you, like someone's always there, and like expert medical staff are there in an instant. But when you are released, obviously you're home and you have on-demand care anymore. And I think what also made this like, oh my gosh, I'm going home, is the fact that how we expected me to come out of the surgery and how I ended up coming out of the surgery was so much better than we ever imagined. Before I was released from the hospital, obviously going into this, we didn't know if I would come out of the spinal surgery with a tracheostomy. We didn't know if I would be paralyzed, obviously, and so it was just a very full circle moment to be like, I came out of this and I'm on the other side now. And so it's just and I had been through so much in 4 weeks. You guys don't even know. I've tried to share as much as I possibly can with you, but just, you have no idea the mental, physical, and emotional toll that those 28 days were. It was truly the most indescribable experience of my life. I never knew that suffering and joy could interconnect. I was so filled with joy the moment I woke up and realized there was no trach in my neck. I was so full of joy that I had full feeling throughout my body. Also suffering in the sense that during these 28 days I had felt the most physical pain I had ever felt in my entire life. So I never knew that these two things could connect with each other. Pain was something we realized that we could only manage so much because of my unique circumstances with pain relief options. And so I had to realize that reality, that the next couple of months were going to be really, really horrible and really hard. And there was nothing more that the hospital could do for me, being at the hospital could do for me, that I couldn't do at home. It was time for me to go home, and I don't think a lot of patients talk about how that can be sometimes. It's not scary. You don't like the hospital that you're at, or you don't like your care team, or you had a bad experience at the hospital. But I had an amazing experience. I had the best care team. So it was really the best case scenario. It was bummy that I had to be there 28 days. That's just how it played out. And luckily I had the best care team to help walk me through these unexpected complications, unexpected challenges that led me to be there for 21 more days than we expected me to for. So I just want you to know that it's not that I didn't want to see my family or that I wasn't excited to go home, but it's a lot. And I mentioned this also a little bit in the beginning. It was really nice too, because during, like, at the peak of COVID, well, not at the peak, but in the middle of COVID, in September when I originally got my halo, like, my family didn't want people here at the house. I couldn't have friends over. So, like, here I am during the most difficult time of my life, extremely isolated. And yes, there's technology, but it's not the same. Being at the hospital, like, seeing so many of my friends that work there, it was great to have that social interaction every day of people that I personally knew, and then going back home to where I don't really have any friends around here. So that was a bummer, and I know that just sounds weird. That's kind of like how I felt going home, and I wanted to mention that, but also just know I was obviously very relieved and grateful that I was able to go home. That meant that I was doing well to go home. My family came and picked me up at around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and by the time they got there, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in my recovery video, kind of where I am now, but at the beginning, or like when they picked me up, I knew that car rides were gonna be awful, especially with the amount of pain that I was in, simply just sitting in my wheelchair, not even moving. And of course, we all know Michigan roads are just superior. We knew that it was going to be really, really awful. I've had car rides that are painful after surgery before, when I have osteotomies and stuff, but this was a whole new level. About halfway through the car ride home, I cried for the last 15-20 minutes home because it was just so awful. The pain was so unbearable. The other thing I want to say is they did pre-medicate me, so they timed it so that I could have medication to get me through the car ride home. Obviously that still only did so much, but that was a really, really difficult aspect. And so that's when we learned that in that moment that car rides were going to be a challenge for the foreseeable future until I really got over this recovery period. And that also made things go because that meant kind of stuck at home again, just like I was in traction, because the pain was just so indescribable. I want to read you this Instagram post that I posted. I ended up posting it a day or two after I got home, because the day I got home, I was in so much pain. I immediately went to bed and I slept for 6 hours when I got home. So I didn't even go on Instagram the whole day pretty much. I didn't post, but this was the post that I wrote. It says, I haven't seen my dad, my mom, or my twin brother, Austin, in 28 days, except via FaceTime. It's the longest any of us have ever been apart, and of course Chloe is essentially attached to my hip and so relieved that I returned. I am here, I am alive, I am tracheostomy free. I went through a spinal fusion without bisphosphony treatments when other surgeons said it's impossible without them. My spine is straighter, not perfect of course, but straighter. I have been given the gift of life, but this journey is still far, far from over. Meaning, obviously, a long road ahead of me of recovery. And I made that post, and I'll of course attach a photo. Just finally being out of the hospital for so long, and my house felt so big. I spent a month in a tiny little hospital room. So my house felt so big, and it was just weird to see my family in person after so long. That car ride home is something, it was rough. It was really one of the most painful car rides of my life. That was basically my discharge day and what that looked like, and I was officially no longer in the hospital. And it was like a whirlwind, because in the same way I couldn't believe that 28 days had went by. I've been through so much in such a short period of time. 16 hours worth of spinal surgery is absolutely insane. And it was just so surreal that after years and years of decision making, of even deciding to do this, and then 3 months with a halo on my head, and then finally making it through the surgery, made it without all the major complications that he anticipated me to possibly have, being on the other side of it, and then a week later already facing complications and having these risks be faced before me once again, making it out of there again just as well as I came in, and then going home and realizing that I was officially on the other side of it and things could only go from there. And it was just a very full circle moment. Say goodbye to some of my nurses that took care of me during those 28 days. They were amazing, like I mentioned in several parts of the series. Many of them I became friends with because they were all I had during those 28 days as far as people to talk to. And so it was hard to leave them, and I am just still so grateful to them. I don't know if any of them will ever see this video, but if you're watching this, thank you, seriously again, for being part of saving my life. And seriously, have no idea the impact that you've had on my life, and I just hope you know that you made a difference in my life. And I seriously just had the best care team during that time. So that was my discharge day. There's really not much more to say about it. It was really, really difficult physically, but also filled with so much joy, realizing what I had overcome, knowing that I had truly overcome the impossible. I debated whether to include this next part in this video or in my recovery video, talking about kind of what that looked like for me going forward and kind of where I am now. But I wanted to share this in this video since it did have to do with my medical team. After I was released from the hospital, they had given me a whole packet with different notes and things of everything I'd gone that led up to this and all of that. And then I had also it said something about go onto your patient portal to see like this portion of it or something, I don't know. And I was going through my patient portal, and I never actually went through read their notes. Like, you can go in after like several days after they write them, like, can view their notes and the things that they say, or like there were some notes that I don't know how to describe, not shake me to my core, but just like realize what a big miracle this truly was. Obviously I've stated that multiple times, but just like reading my pulmonologist that quite literally say Michaela is at high risk for ventilator dependence after going through the surgery, and then not having a ventilator. It's just like a full circle moment once again. So I'm going to put here on the screen just kind of a timeline of notes and things that you'll see. I've blurred some of the things out and underlined some of the most important things, just so that you guys can truly see. I've obviously brought you through from the very first day that we started having this conversation in 2018 and all the decisions that I had to make. And I tried to share with you all of it, but it's different when you see it. You can just, at least maybe I'm just interpreting it too emotionally, but I feel like you can kind of tell in the notes just how, I don't want to say bleak, because they were like obviously confident, like they wouldn't have put me through it if they thought I was going to die on the table. Like, obviously death is a risk of any surgery, but like if they really thought I was going to die on the table, like they wouldn't have put me through it. But you could just tell that they feared a lot of complication for me. I'm going through this, so these notes that you're seeing now are conversations that we've had throughout the years at my different appointments with my different specialists that were involved in this endeavor. I wanted to share that because it's written proof of God's miracles. Like, medicine doesn't decide my outcome. The Lord does. And that these notes are proof of that. And it makes me, I would just feel like there was one night in specific that I was reading these notes and just overcome with joy. I don't know, there's just something about the way that these notes were written, and then looking back at how I'm doing now. Such, again, how many times in the video have I said a full circle moment? But I feel like so much of this journey has become a full circle moment in such a good way. And so I hope that you guys don't mind me sharing these with you. It really brings this journey all together. Seeing these notes and then seeing where I am now is just flashback to when I had a halo in my head, and now I'm telling you that this is the end of the spinal fusion experience series. It's amazing at what the human body is able to endure in such a short amount of time. I went through 16 hours worth of spinal surgery in 2 weeks, and I had 0 complications from that. Meaning no tracheostomy, not paralyzed, did not even need a blood transfusion. Most of my friends that don't even have nearly of severe scoliosis as me need a blood transfusion for a spinal surgery. Like, and I didn't, and I have more severe scoliosis than them. Like, what? Like, that in itself is a miracle. And that alone, I couldn't believe when they told me I didn't need a blood transfusion. Like, so I think what these notes do for me is it brings it all together, and it gives me a visual to really look at this in such a full picture way of how much I've endured in the past 3 years. The difficult decisions that I had to make. Again, I hope you don't mind me sharing that, but it's really special to me and very joyous for me to be able to share these. Now that I made it home, I had a lot of energy to regain, a lot of strength to regain, and a long road ahead of me. I was reunited with my family, and I was out of the hospital. I also forgot, I didn't tell you guys this either, but another reason why I was so glad, obviously, that I came home on the 20th is because my friend Pip, you guys on my Instagram, and in one of my videos here, she was planning on coming to visit me on January 30th, and obviously when she booked those flights, because she lives in Minnesota now, obviously when she booked those flights, my surgery, my spinal fusion was on December 23rd, so none of us ever anticipated when she booked those flights that I could possibly not be home, right? A month later, Michaela still might not be home. Like, that never even crossed my mind, because obviously here she booked these flights, and like I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, like I gotta make it home so I can see her, because she wouldn't even be able to come to me to the hospital. That was pretty awesome. So a week later, she came to visit, which was like such a cup filling moment for me as well. In the next video, you will see, or you will hear me talk about my recovery, where I am now, like currently in this moment, as to how I'm doing. and just kind of looking back to this journey. But that's it for this spinal fusion experience as far as medical, hospital portion of it. If you missed any of the segments, you can catch up. A lot of ups and downs, and the lowest lows of my life, the lowest low of my life. But also the miracles were so big that it was one of the highest highs of my life. To say thank you guys for being a part of a journey of a lifetime, this journey of a process that in the long run will hopefully give me a longer life, and that's the best gift that I could ever ask for. And you guys have been such a huge part of it. Prayed for me more and bigger than I ever imagined, and you guys have been a part of this miracle, and thank you will never be enough. Like, I wish I could hug you all through the screen. You guys helped me get here to this moment where I'm able to sit here today and share with you this story without a tracheostomy in my neck, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. Also, one other thing, I was in the hospital on Christmas, obviously. Again, we didn't expect me to be gone for a month. Our family still hadn't had Christmas. We'll get into that more in the recovery, but 2 days after I came home, we finally celebrated Christmas as a family of 4. It's the end of my spinal fusion experience in the hospital. A whole month's worth of events. Truly the most difficult, lowest, highest, most amazing, most emotionally difficult, most physically difficult, most mentally difficult journey of my life. Because of this journey, because of this immense suffering, because of these trials, I get to sit here and share with you that the miracles and all of that is worth all the trials and worth all the suffering. Thanks for watching my spinal fusion experience series. I hope that this helps you, because no one else with OI talking about their experience on YouTube, at least that I know of. So I hope I can be that face for you. You will never be enough. Better and bigger things, and hopefully less medical related videos in the future, now that I am over the most difficult medical endeavor in my 23 years of life. Life is worth fighting for, and I fought and fought and fought. It was so worth the fight.